Poison by Henrietta Rose-Innes.
On a street near a petrol station, Lynn's Toyota had ran out of petrol. She was relieved that of all places, this was where her car ran out. Lucky me, Lynn thought to herself. But all of that was refuted when she saw cars piling up the station's forecourt and a blue overalled man gesturing a throat slit. There was no petrol. 20 odd stranded people blankly glanced at Lynn before turning their eyes again toward the distant city, and everyone was quiet as they stared down the highway, back at what they had all been driving away from. At the skies of Cape Town, an oily cloud was looming over and covering the Devil's Peak. People guessed it might have been a summer fire, but it was darker and larger. It rose higher and higher into the sky, creating a plume twice as high as the mountain, as if it were a huge evil genie leaning towards them.
Lynn had clearly left town far too late. Despite all the warnings she had received after the explosion, she stayed for 3 days, hoping that someone would come to the rescue. She spent those nights with her friends, drinking and getting drunk, until the 3rd day, when she realized the pain in the back of her throat wasn't a hangover and she needed to move. Everyone she knew had already left by that point, and now she was stranded in a petrol station courtesy of a lack of petrol. People in the station were divided, splitting into tribes. Everyone was tending to their own emergencies, even the petrol attendants themselves. Lynn could see speckles of black grime from everyone who came out of the city, coated with foul stuff.
Lynn had squandered numerous opportunities to flee town before her eyes. When a small red car approached the station, a group of friends dashed across the highway and strung themselves together to obstruct the car's path. But it was too late for Lynn to join them. The young people had already piled in, and the car was swallowing, every window crammed with hands and faces. Another instance was when Adil's IT bonanza confirmed with an extended family and other petrol scavengers to let them hitch up with his packy. If Lynn had been keen on making great alliances, perhaps she might be riding in that packy. But here she was, sipping her coke thoughtfully as the packy pulled away.
Lynn was hungry now, and she was savoring a bucket of cheese and onion chips in the cafeteria like she was catching up on the years she hadn't eaten them. Assimilating the chips really alleviated her headache. All of this went undisturbed until a female patrol attendant, surprisingly free from the suit that flecked the motorists, burst through the glass door and took a few hundreds of money from the cafeteria straw.
Taxi's going,
The attendant said to Lynn.
Really? With what petrol?
Lynn asked with dubiety.
He's got petrol. He was just waiting to fill the seats. We arrange a price for you too, if you want.
The attendant said. Lynn was in disbelief at how this taxi driver was still trying to leech off money from this unfortunate situation. Nevertheless, despite how hard the attendant negotiated with Lynn, she still refused and insisted that police and rescue services will come and save them. It was another escape opportunity missed for Lynn.
Lynn, whose skin was oozing with black specks and poison, was now alone, and the silence filled the petrol station as the last taxi departed. It was mid-afternoon, and the cloud was growing, and as she watched, a wash of darkness dawned across the sky, and there ensued a strange horizontal rain. Reflexively, Lynn ducked and put her hands to her hair, but she realized these weren't rain droplets. These were thousands of birds that were sprinting away from the mountain. It was at this moment that Lynn was filled with fear. She calculated her resources of food from the petrol cafeteria if there were enough, and confidence washed over her face when she realized she had enough resources for rescue to come along before then. After some time, she explored the petrol station and noticed how clear the sky was. as if the petrol station marked the limit of the zone of contamination. She felt like she could be here for days. There was nobody else here. Nobody for miles around. She was alone, or she thought she was, until she saw somebody in her car.
An old woman sat in the car. Lynn
Hi,
introduced
I'm
herself
Lynn.
and informed the old woman of the explosion, but the woman only replied,
My grandson.
The old woman smiled and turned away to end the talk.
There has been an accident, an explosion. There are chemicals in the air, poison. It might be coming this way. I think we should go out front. There might be people coming past who can help us. Cars, ambulances.
Lynn reasoned with the old woman. As the rain began to fall, the elderly lady allowed Lynn to take her out of the car. Then she sat the old lady on a sheltered bench outside the shop and went inside to get some bottles of water and packets of chips. Then she had to use the restroom again. But by the time she returned outside, the rain had stopped and the old lady had vanished. She found the old lady sitting in her car once more, and the old lady repeated,
My grandson.
Lynn sat in the car for a while, but her uneasiness overtook her, so she got out.
I'll be right back, okay?
Lynn explained to the elderly lady.
She just needed to walk around a bit. She headed off towards the sun, which was melting easily into smears of red and purple. The mountain was no longer visible. The road was discolored, splattered with lumps of some tarry black precipitate. She counted 5 small bodies of birds, feathers damp and stuck together. Blades of grass at the side of the road were streaked with black, and the ground seemed to be smoking, a layer of foul steam around her ankles. It got worse the further she walked, and so she turned around.
Someone was standing near her car. She recognized the mustache and overalls right away. She chose to hide and remain motionless. She noticed the man holding a white cherry can and filling her car with gasoline, but at the wrong time, her stomach roared, and she had to crouch down by the side of the road to vomit the stinking cheese and onion mulch.
The moment she decided to stand and wave to the man was too late. The man got in the car, and the motor turned immediately, and there the car was rolling forward. All she could see was the back of the old woman's head, and as the car went further, its rear windscreen was dominated by the sunset's reflection, and her Toyota headed out into the clear evening.
Solitude ruled within the walls of the petrol station, and unfortunately Lynn was the one subjected to this. The sun had fallen, and the stars scattered across the skies. It was a sight to see for Lynn as she sipped coke to help with nausea. She'd been there for 3 days, and her head felt clear. Though strange rain had had a few bursts, the chemical storm had not progressed farther down the highway. Lynn stayed still and adamant about the thought that rescue would come. The ambulances with flashing lights, the men in luminous vests with equipment and supplies. Or maybe just a stream of people driving back home. But if rescue took too long, then there was always the black bicycle that she'd found leaning up against the petrol pump. Maybe tomorrow or the day after. And when this was all over, she was definitely going to go on a proper detox. Give up all the junk food and alcohol. Sometime soon.
But for now, it was just Lynn and her packet of salt and vinegar chips. Behind her, the last of the sunset lingered. Poison violent and abuse, but she didn't dare to look. She wanted to face clear skies and sweet-smelling veldt. If she closed her eyes, she might hear a frog, just one, starting its evening song beyond the